exhibiting, say, loss of bladder control, loss of rectal control, everything in the lower part of the body, lower back pain and all these things. And you've checked the PSA, you've checked all the other factors and come down with the prostate cancer diagnosis. Very often, what is done is to find a way to manipulate the hormone. So, hormone manipulation to try and manage the cancer. And you can manipulate the hormone by either inhibiting synthesis of the androgens or by inhibiting the binding of the androgens to the AR or androgen receptor, so you can decrease the actions or the effects of the androgens. One of the ways of inhibiting synthesis is to give a high dose of ketoconazole or nizoral. Normally, you would give your ketoconazole at a dosage of about 200 milligrams, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day, if you're using it to treat fungal infections. Okay. But if you're using it as a hormonal manipulation to try and manage prostate cancer, you'll be using 800 milligrams on a TID basis. See, that's a very high dose, and ketoconazole being an azole will inhibit that C14 demethylase so that you don't form your cholesterol in the first place. And with that cholesterol, you will now be producing your androgens, testosterone and so on. So that's one way. And then, of course, you have other agents that would inhibit androgen synthesis, and we'll talk about those now. So, for manipulation of androgens, you either do orchiectomy, that is, you cut out the testis, or you use drugs. And if you use drugs, you have to inhibit production, or you have to inhibit binding, that is action. You have some drugs that are non-steroidal anti-androgens. Non-steroidal anti-androgens. These are agents, of course, that are non-steroidal and that will antagonize androgens by competitively inhibiting the androgens at the AR receptor sites, that is androgen receptor site. So they are non-steroids, and they will give you competitive inhibition, which of course will make reversible inhibition of the androgens. So they will inhibit the binding of your androgens to the receptor sites. And these NSAAs are sometimes called the glutamides because they all, the glutamides, because they all end in glutamides. So examples, as you see in your handout there, will be drugs like flutamide, enzalutamide, okay, bicalutamide. Those are examples. Nilutamide, apalutamide, they're all listed in there. So those are NSAAs. And then, of course, you have some that would be steroidal anti-androgens. Steroidal anti-androgens. And your steroidal anti-androgens will be agents like Zytiga, for instance. Okay. There is abiraterone. So you have abiraterone, you have androcol, which would be another example. Sapropteron, okay, and then Megis is the other example there. So these are steroidal agents that can interfere with androgens. Zytiga will inhibit synthesis of the androgen because it is an inhibitor of 17-alpha hydroxylase. Okay, so if you inhibit 17-alpha hydroxylase, then you will not be converting pregnenolone to hydroxypregnenolone. And if you don't have 17 alpha hydroxypregnenolone, then you will not be getting your DHEA, and then you will not be getting androstenedione and testosterone. Okay, so this Zytiga would inhibit synthesis, but androcol would actually act like your NSAAs because it would inhibit binding of the androgen to the AR, to the androgen receptor site. And of course, we've talked about megestrol, which is Megis, that has anti-androgenic properties. Okay. This Zytiga will be used on a BID basis. You give about 2 of the 200 milligrams BID, so 400 milligrams twice a day. Okay. That's how it would be used. Let's say 200. It will be 2 of the 250s. So 2 of the 250s is what you would use for your Zytiga. And sometimes you can even see 2 of the 500 milligrams used on a BID basis. But whatever dose that one picks for Zytiga, you must always accompany it with prednisone. Because if you're inhibiting 17-alpha hydroxylase, you will not be forming your cortisol either in the adrenal gland. Okay, so you have to replenish that adrenocortical hormone for the Zytiga. Okay. Now the other group or other class of drugs that you would use in the prostate cancer in terms of manipulating hormones your gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone analogs. These agents would work by initially causing an increase in the release of gonadotropins, and then eventually stopping, through negative feedback mechanism, eventually stopping the release of your LH and FSH. So they work at the pituitary and hypothalamus pathway. Okay. So these agents would include, you would also always see renin there. So sometimes they are called the renins. Okay, so goserelin, moserelin, nafarelin, all of those will be your gonadotropin releasing hormone analogs. Hysterelin would also be a member of that group. So the renins would give you, like we said, the initial increase and then a final decrease in the release of LH and FSH. And then you have a fourth class that you can use, which would be the gonadotropin releasing hormone antagonists. So those ones do not cause an initial increase. They don't cause this initial increase in the gonadotropin hormones. They simply antagonize the LH and FSH that one would produce there. Amarelix is an example there. Digarelix is another example, and I think they're all listed in the handout there that one can use. Let me highlight this agent up here. Nafarelin. And among your GnRHA, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone antagonists, you also have an agent called elagolix. This elagolix is often mentioned as one of your anti-prostate gland agents, prostate cancer agents. But just like this nafarelin, those drugs are used more for endometriosis as opposed to prostate cancer in particular. There's another substance called relugolix. Even though you see relugolix sounds very much like your elagolix, relugolix is used more for prostate cancer than for endometriosis. So nafarelin, which is a renin or gonadotropin releasing hormone analog, is used more for endometriosis, and elagolix, which is a gonadotropin releasing hormone antagonist, is also used more for endometriosis than for prostate cancer. Okay. So again, for hormonal manipulation, you either do surgery where you use orchiectomy, or you do drugs. If you do drugs, you'll be inhibiting synthesis, or you'll be inhibiting the binding of androgens to receptors, that is inhibiting action. Okay. And for drugs, you can use NSAA, SA, gonadotropin releasing analogs, and gonadotropin releasing hormone antagonists. Okay, and to finish your prostate, we mentioned some before, but we can look at some combination agents that are used. You can use FL, which is flutamide and glucuronide. Flutamide, and that's glutamides. Okay, so flutamide, glucuronide, flutamide, and your Zoladex. That's a combination, and sometimes you see PZ used, and P is the paclitaxel, which is the taxane, and of course the Z is your Zoladex, and Zoladex of course is gosirelin, so it's one of your relins, okay, that you can see used there. And you can see a combination of bicalutamide. Bicalutamide is Casodex, one of your glutamides, bicalutamide, and that can be combined with your Zoladex. So that's another combination. Or you can simply use that bicalutamide and combine it with, say, the glucuronide or one of your relics. And the ones we mentioned earlier also would include using prednisone in combination with a taxane. So prednisone plus your paclitaxel, or prednisone with docetaxel, or prednisone with your Gentab, cabazitaxel. Okay. Or you can use prednisone and you combine it with the anthracendiol, microxanthone. That combination can also be used. And then you can do the GUD, which will be the docetaxel and MCIT. MCIT is extramucin. And then the other G will be dexamethasone. So docetaxel, NSAID, and dexamethasone. So those are some combos that you can see used in prostate cancer treatment. Now we can finish up with the lungs. Or lung cancer. Normally you would divide your lung cancer into two types. So SCLC, small cell lung cancer, and your NSCLC, non-small cell lung cancer. If it's not small, then it means it will be large. Okay, so some examples of your NSCLC will be Elcock. That's large cell undifferentiated cancer or carcinoma. Large cell undifferentiated carcinoma. So that's an example of an NSCLC. Then some are associated with the glandular cells, that is, they originate from your glandular cells. So there will be adenocarcinoma. Because you have glands there. That's another example of your non-small cell lung cancer. And some will be derived from your squamous cells. Okay, so that's the SCC. So your Elcock, your SCC, and your adenocarcinoma of the lungs are examples of large, that is non-small cell lung cancer. Even though you have at least 5 times the number of drugs that you see used for NSCLC, the SCLC actually responds more to drugs than your NSCLC. So in other words, you have many drugs that have been manufactured, for use in NCLC management. But NSCLC is mainly responsive to surgery and radiation, far less to drugs, even though you have so many drugs for its management. So for NSCLC, you use surgery and you use radiation first before you think about drugs. It is less responsive to drugs compared to SCLC. SCLC responds very well to drugs, but you only have a limited amount or limited number of drugs that are available for managing your SCLC. And so, mainly what we will do is look at the combos that you use for SCLC. Okay. You can use the PI regimen, and then you have the PE regimen, and the VIP, VIP regimen, and you have the Chi, and you have the CAVE regimen, and then the COPE regimen. And you can use the Chi-PE regimen, or even the CAVE regimen. That's essentially all you have for small cell lung cancer. The P in PI is platinum, that's platinum. Okay. And the I is irinotecan. It's irinotecan. For PE, the P is platinol, also platinum, and of course the E is etoposide. For VIP, the V there stands for VP16. And what's What's another name for VP system? That's the deficit. Okay. And deficit, of course, is etoposide. Okay. So we're using deficit, a phosphamide, and of course with mesna. So deficit, a phosphamide, and then with your platinum, cisplatin. Okay. For Pi is cyclophosphamide. Cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, and etoposide. And for CABE is cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, and vincristine. That's what you will use. And then for COPE, and I should put an asterisk here, because COPE is the most often employed regimen for SCLC. Okay. And it is your cyclophosphamide and oncoline, which is vincristine, cisplatin, platinol, and then of course etoposide. So cyclophosphamide, oncoline, which is vincristine, platinol, which is cisplatin, and then etoposide. That's what you have in your COPE. And then the CAB regimen, that's the second most often used regimen for SCLC. So the first one is COPE, second one is CAB-PE, and it's just your CAB, like your CAB, if you will, like you have here. So cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, vincristine, and then platinol and etoposide. So that's essentially what you have for LCLC. Now for NSCLC, you have many your RTKIs, receptor, tyrosine kinase inhibitors, and many RTKIs that you can use for NSCLC. Capmatinib is one of them. And whenever it ends in tinib or anib, if you will, but whenever it ends in that nib, NIB, it is usually a reverse a receptor tyrosine kinase inhibitor. So whenever you see the genetic name and it ends in that NIB, just like for MABs, when you say monoclonal antibodies. But whenever you see that NIB as the suffix, it usually has a receptor tyrosine kinase inhibitory activity. And so you have ones like alectinib, that would work there, and tepotinib, that's another example. Lorlatinib would be another one. Osimertinib, crizotinib is another one. Ceritinib also comes in there. And brigatinib, all of these are RTKIs that you can see used in your NSCLC. So that would be another agent that there are some more, but we'll just leave it there. Then your MABs, there are some monoclonal antibodies that are used for NSCLC. NSCLC. Nivolumab, that, of course, we should put an asterisk there. That's your Opdivo, very commonly used drug today. Opdivo. You'll probably see, in fact, they advertise it a lot also today, Opdivo versus Yamo. That's a combination that is very commonly used today for NSCLC. Before I go on, I think we should highlight Lotinib, which is very often found in pharmacy, very expensive drug. I think it's about $30,000 for just about 30 tablets. That's your Caseva. Or anyway, Ipilimumab, and that's your Yarbo. So you see that combination used a lot for NSCLC. And then you have Rituximab, which is also common. Bevacizumab, which of course works more on angiogenesis. It's more of an angiogenetic inhibitor, but it's a monoclonal antibody that you can see used in NSCLC. And then your Tecentriq is atezolizumab, and then of course Keytruda, Keytruda, which is pembrolizumab. So those are some examples of monoclonal antibodies that you can see used. Those four are very often used. And of course, you know that your pembrolizumab, which is your Keytruda, and your Tecentriq can also affect the program death, PD1 and then PDL1. So Tecentriq will be PDL1 inhibitor, and of course Keytruda will be just the PD inhibitor. We'll finish up with just the other combos that you can see used in NSCLC. And well, we say that from elementary school, your dad has told you if you work hard in school, you get a good CV, you can build up a good CV, and a CV that that is I, will be proud of, CVI, okay? And then you can graduate, you'll have the graduation cap. The graduation cap can look foamy. So you have a foamy cap regimen. And once you graduate, we can take you to a camp where you can eat a lot of bacon. some Big Mac. Okay, so those are some combos that you use for NSCLC. And if you're looking at the CV, with your cisplatin and your deficit, okay, and your CVI will be your cisplatin, deficit, and one can use phosphamide, and then CAP will be your cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, and platinol, and Fomicap will be 5-FU, oncoline, which will be vincristine, and then mitomycin, and of course CAP, cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, and cisplatin or platinol. And CAMP will be your cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, methotrexate, okay, and the P there is procarbazine. And bacon will be your bleomycin and your adriamycin. And this C here is CCMU. Okay. CCMU. And then O is oncoline, and N is nitrogen mustard. Nitrogen mustard. So you see, for your bacon, you actually have two alkylating agents involved: the nitrogen mustard and your CCNU. So you have two inhibitors, two alkylating agents. And then for MAC, it will be your methotrexate and adriamycin that one can use there. And then you have your cyclophosphamide and then CCNU that you can use in there. Other regimens that are used, you can take gemcitabine as a background, and you can add to it cisplatin. So you have GemCis, and you have Gem Carbo, which is the carboplatin, and you have Gem Vinorelbin, which will be one of your vinca alkaloids. Or you can take Taxol as the backbone there. It will be Taxol plus cis, Taxol plus carbo, or Taxol plus vinorelbin. So you can use that as the background. And then lastly, you can take cisplatin as the backbone drug. And to cisplatin, we can add docetaxel, or you can add irinotecan, or pemetrexate. Or even we can add a vinca alkaloid like vinblastine, or vinorelbin. Okay. And in the same way, you can take carboplatin as a background drug and just use it along with your docetaxel or paclitaxel or pemetrexate, or with your gemcitabine. Okay. So those are the different combinations you can use for NSCLC. NSCLC. That's why we say we have a ton of drugs that will work in NSCLC, even though the condition responds more to surgery and radiation, less so to drugs. Okay, questions? Good morning, how are you? So, we're just finishing up.
Oh, no, take your time.
No, we're through, unless you do have questions. No questions? So, huh?
Gotta go digest.
The survival rate for non-small cell if patient can't do radiation surgery.
It's not very good. Yeah, they don't have a good 5-year survival rate. Yeah, they can do. So you basically have to find some radioactive isotope that will work in that patient. You know. In a patient that has, just to go back to prostate cancer, in a patient that has prostate cancer, even though your radiation and the surgical methods that we mentioned can work, if you use radiation, you actually increase the chances of the patient coming down with bladder cancer and GI cancer. You know, so for prostate, you actually want to try to avoid radiation because you can produce the secondary cancers. With your non-small cell lung cancer, you want to use radiation and surgery. Yes, ma'am.
Could you repeat what was the foamy cap regimen for number 4?
That's the cap you wear when you graduate with a PhD. Okay. So you have your 5 FU, cell, and then unfolding, which will be your vincristine. And the MI you take together, that's mitomycin. And then for the cap, with the cyclophosphamide, adriamycin, and platinum. Okay, we shall see you, what, 7 p.m.? 7 p.m. tonight.
7 p.m.
Oh,
Good morning, everybody. That was February 1st, Happy New Year. Chat, say hello to you, see what's going on, questions, comments for me. When is your next class? 9?